This video is going to be a film study look at the role that Tim Patrick played in the Lions' 47-9 win over the Cowboys in Week 6. Of course, Patrick came over after being released by the Broncos in late August, signed a one-year deal for, I think, like $1.12 million, a real bargain, if you ask me. Finished with 3 catches for 68 yards, nearly had his first touchdown against Trayvon Diggs on the left side of the end zone against the Cowboys. He's a 6'4", 215-pound receiver, basically sat out 2 years for injuries. Him and Josh Reynolds really exchanged teams. Lions fans know about all that, obviously. Reynolds and Patrick, to compare them, they're similar body type. Reynolds is like 6'3", maybe 205, 200 pounds. The route configurations that they run or that they're generally tasked to try to execute in Ben Johnson's offense, yes, they are similar. Can Tim Patrick give you what Josh Reynolds did? Well, I'm not so sure about the total number of catches. 40 catches for 64 yards last year for Reynolds. High efficiency down the field. I think yards per catch last year was 15 or 16, maybe a little bit more. At this point, though, Tim Patrick has 8 catches on 10 targets for 140 yards, so 17.5 yards per catch. If you were to maintain that same level of efficiency, that same level of down-the-field attack on those dig routes, essentially, you could convince yourself that you would get to similar numbers. I don't think this Lions team needs 40 catches from Tim Patrick. I think they need 28 or 30 or 32, somewhere in that range. Jamison Williams is playing a bigger role this year, obviously. Sam Laporta's targets are, yes, down, but I think his increased usage is just a matter of time, and his increased impact is just a matter of time as well. I think Tim Patrick can play. I said that when he signed there. I had actually done a video about Tim Patrick like a week and a half earlier because he scored a touchdown in the preseason that I thought was notable. In case you are not aware, I'm a Ravens fan and Ravens content creator originally, and I remember us going to Denver to play them in 2021 and being pretty scared of the impact that Patrick and Sutton could have as big, tall receivers. This is his touchdown in the preseason. It was cool for me to see at that point in time. Obviously, he's not on the Lions, and nor is he, looked at as someone that's going to be moved on. Broncos decided to move on from him. So at this point in time, I was just happy that he played well through 2 preseason games. Comes over to Detroit. What do you expect? What did you expect? Well, it was talked about that Jared Goff needed someone to play that Josh Reynolds role. I think Tim Patrick is doing it perfectly. I think he's going to take advantage of a high percentage of his opportunities. Basically, if he's not open, I don't know that Jared Goff is going to throw him the football 6 or 8 times in a given game. This is like almost 4 to a side in some ways against the Bucs in week 2 at home. It's not 4 to a side pre-snap because it's a 3-by-1 formation. But the way that it works out post-snap is Patrick is bringing his route from the left-hand side of the field and then kind of sitting in here, almost going to the side where they have trips. And then additional to that, the running back is basically replacing Patrick to the backside. So they're making the Bucs or any defense waste their boundary side corner and or run him across with the underneath route, which in some cases is what you want to do to vacate this deep portion of the field, number one, or number two, isolate that corner on a running back. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. It's a short completion, obviously, to Tim Patrick. I think it goes for 10 yards on like a 2nd and 10. So inconsequential, but my point in explaining to you the different types of routes you're going to see out of Patrick is I think you're going to either get deeper concepts, those deep digs that we talked about, or underneath drags that are going to basically make the defense account for him and almost in some ways use that backside X receiver as bait. I do think Jamison Williams should be the backside X a little bit more often than we've seen it so far in 2024, but that's a point for another video. Against Seattle 2 weeks ago before the bye, you see him across the field underneath against a smaller corner. It's Trey Brown, smaller than him at least. This is a 2nd and 10. It's a really nice throw by Jared Goff. He brings the tight end into the boundary, so set to the field as the X receiver. I'm slowing the video up at times, so if it becomes jittery, let me know. I will give you the end zone angle. I just love the timing of when this is thrown by Goff and where it's thrown. Look at where Patrick is, and then look at where the ball arrives in between 2 defenders. I think it was a really cool illustration of how Goff understands coverage. I'm not a big fan of calling things anticipation throws. Goff has a read. Goff understands the coverage, so he knows where the play concept is going to work out based on the coverage. It's not anticipation, almost in some ways kind of means that he's guessing forward. I don't think you're guessing here. I think you really know what's going to happen. You're probably cut off a little bit, just so you know. Jameson Williams is right here in the top side of the screen, and he's basically running a clear out route. And underneath of that is Patrick's route, exact concept that Josh Reynolds was utilized on often in 2023. So I think people have the right perspective when they say they needed a replacement for him. In that same Seattle game, he's now up top, probably cut off for you a little bit on your screen, but he'll come into the screen. Little just Z under concept. Goff drifts out of there. Underneath the coverage, Patrick brings it all the way across. I think it's a 23 or 24-yard gain. He damn near got into the end zone. As I said before, he's up at the top side of the screen. We'll make note of where he is here. Coming from the top side of the screen, the right-hand side of the offense. Goff, for whatever reason, going to shift out to his right. Really nothing available over the middle of the field to St. Brown, which I think is where Goff is looking at this point. The inside linebacker, number 0, I think Dotson will be possibly in position to defend it. Rayshon Jenkins also recovers to it. And look at the awareness. St. Brown immediately peels off the block. Another Lions player moves up to block, potentially up the sideline, just escort Patrick, trying to sneak into the end zone. Give you the end zone angle of this one. He's not going to come into view, obviously, until right before Goff throws the football. I think he's very aware. I think he's savvy and smart. Doesn't appear to have the same long speed that maybe he did at one point in time in his career. Like I said, when the Ravens go to play Denver in 2021, early in that season, I was worried about their big receivers against some of our smaller corners. This past week against Dallas, made a brilliant catch down the right sideline. Now you miss him a little bit here because I'm zoomed in somewhat on my screen because I'm using a different player at this point. Once the route gets going, you can see he's already created some separation, a little bit of physicality used to do so. I'll come back to it in a moment. Ball underthrown, is intentionally thrown there to give Patrick a chance to catch the football and or draw a pass interference. I'm not sure. I just know that Patrick's able to come back and get it. Number one, it's a 42-yard gain. Is he going to break away from people with speed? No, I think oftentimes you're going to see it just like this, where there's a little bit of a hedge, a little bit of some contact. I'm intentionally rewinding it slow so you guys can perhaps catch it right here. Getting the arm extended such that he can take the route vertical and Goff can get the football up the field to him. I think this was an important play. I think it's an important play for Detroit's offense. St. Brown at times is going to beat people deep. He's extremely versatile. He can do anything well. Jameson Williams clearly has the speed to do it. If Tim Patrick can threaten your corner deep and kind of stretch the field a little bit, I think that's a huge benefit for this offense. What type of corner is he going to need to be matched up against? Look, he's going to be matched up against outside corners. He's generally going to line up to the outside. I do wonder sometimes about him being lined up in the slot, kind of working underneath, because he's a veteran player. He's very smart. And in my opinion, his skill set fits with Goff extremely well. Another kind of in-breaking route, deeper down the field, very reminiscent of stuff that Josh Reynolds would have run last year. I think there was a point in 2023 where Reynolds was like 18 for 18 catches for first downs. What I like about Reynolds and Patrick in this offense is Goff's ability to come back to him later on in the progression. It's what happened in 2023 with Reynolds, and it's what I could see happening this year with Patrick. Goff, you can see, is looking down here, and he's going to get that route brought back to the right hash, like I mentioned earlier, before the ball snapped. Patrick's able to catch the ball, and then when you get the end zone angle, you'll see he's aware of the fact that the safety is there and going to make contact with him immediately after catching the football. It's an 18-yard gain, 2nd and 9. I think 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes left in the first quarter. At halftime, pretty much, this game was over before halftime, but Patrick's impact was pretty much over at halftime. He had the big catch on the 4th possession. This is 6th possession, 18 yards. Gets him down. It's eventually capped by Montgomery's short touchdown run. But if you recall, originally Patrick had his first touchdown of the season. I'm going to break that one down here in a moment. I think that's important. Is it called from the sideline? Is it Goff noticing the space here between Patrick and Trayvon Diggs? I'm not sure. I just know that it works out in their favor. He gets the ball out to him, and Patrick just decides to play through the contact and not really try to juke at all. His knee ends up being down. One thing to note here is the look back. It tells you all you need to know about the pride and the excitement that he had as soon as he saw we're going to miss it here. You're not going to see it. But as soon as he saw the ref signal and touchdown, he decided to get up and celebrate. It was a little upsetting or frustrating to a certain extent that he wasn't awarded that touchdown, but his knee was down. Little hitch, essentially, is what this is against a corner that isn't necessarily known for tackling. He's known more for his ball skills, obviously. A tremendous amount of interceptions, and in fact, a lot of them return for touchdowns in his career with the Cowboys. Making those guys tackle at times is important. I think, could Tim Patrick be used in this way, throwing hitches out to him 2-3 times a game? No, that's not what the Detroit Lions need. They don't need him to be a high target type of guy. They need him to be efficient down the field. I think between the zones, basically zone 2, 3, and 4. So the middle of the field being 3, zone 2 and 4 existing to the exterior, the outside of the middle of the field. That's the area that I think Josh Reynolds frequented last year. It's available to Tim Patrick this year. He doesn't need to be a burner in terms of speed to make himself available on those plays. Just catch the balls that are thrown to you. Catch it when you're open, such that the Lions offense, can continue to work their way downfield, and other guys, the playmakers, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, St. Brown, and Laporta, and Jamison Williams, can finish off drives. To me, that's Tim Patrick's job, almost like a setup guy in a relief role who bridges the gap between a starter and a closer. Well, nowadays they use a whole bunch of them, but a guy who bridges the gap between a starter and a closer in a Major League Baseball game, someone who can just ensure that the drive reaches the scoring zone. Maybe he doesn't finish things off. Maybe he doesn't bust many 40-yard catches like you saw him win down the right sideline against the Cowboys. I'm excited for the Lions to have someone who appears to be more reliable than many people in the fan base would have thought 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks ago. Did I think he was going to be this reliable then? No, I thought there was the potential to be, and the film in the preseason showed it. Showed a guy who was able to move and get around. It honestly surprised me that the Broncos released him. Looking back now, it seems like they were just showcasing him to possibly be used to trade away. Maybe Sean Payton and the coaching staff didn't think he was reliable. Maybe they didn't think he'd be able to stay healthy for a full season. I guess that should still be a concern for Detroit. Nonetheless, it's exciting for Tim Patrick to see him performing this way, and for the offense to have another piece that is complementary by nature, but also, at least in the case of Week 6 against the Cowboys, was able to make plays down the field and at the end zone, almost get his first touchdown. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you enjoy my film study videos, let me know in the comment section. If you like this one particularly, please consider grabbing a link to it, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach. Finally, if you've ever considered supporting me on Patreon, it's $4.99 a month. It just basically justifies the amount of time that I spend for myself creating content for the Ravens and Lions fans. Number one. Number two, there is Patreon-only content that I try to push out. One of the things I'm going to try to do each week is put out extended defense film study, whereby I look at 25, 30 plays from the game, and I'm just basically immediately reacting to them, not necessarily an organized production on a YouTube film study video. Appreciate you guys' time, man.